This week, the stranded astronauts have finally returned home after 9 months, but they're not eligible for overtime, and what space did to their bodies is wild. Claims have been going viral that scientists discovered 5 massive hollow structures underneath the pyramids, and even Papa Joe spoke about it. Tesla-rrism, yes, we're coining that, is getting out of hand. So bad, in fact, that the US Attorney General is now threatening up to 20 years in prison. And I was not supposed to be recording this. In fact, I was supposed to be in Texas right now. But the reason I'm not is because a fire shut down Europe's busiest airport. And boy, am I gonna have some passion behind that story, because it is to me. All of that and so much more news. Subscribe to the channel because others have recounted that Alex has turned up to their house, waited an hour, and then threatened to throw them into space. So do not become just another number of those who have been thrown into space by Alex. Subscribe. That's your warning, so let's stop the yapping and let's get rockin'! Okay, I want to talk about this story first because none of you, not a single one, can tell me we are not living in a movie. Because after 9 months being stranded in space, the 2 astronauts, Suni and Butch Williams, no, that's not the right name, Suni Williams and Butch, the name escapes me, well, they touched down this week in a scene so goddamn beautiful, it looks AI generated. Don't want to stop the conspiracies with that one. And yes, apparently they will not be getting overtime for that. We'll get into it. I mean, you can see boats racing to them in the distance, and then SpaceX hit them with the coldest line that they've been waiting 286 days to hear.
Butch, Suni, on behalf of SpaceX, welcome home.
Oh, and just when you think things couldn't look any cooler, they are welcomed back to Earth by a pod of dolphins. What the fuck?
Corn casserole.
Now keep in mind, their bodies haven't felt gravity in almost a year, and you can lose about 1/3 of your muscle mass in just 2 weeks. So because of that, they even needed help standing up and were given these like rolling chairs so that, their bodies could readjust again. And yeah, it's safe to say that space did not let them come back untouched. The first thing that people started noticing with Suni is gray hair. She went up with pretty much jet black hair, came back noticeably lighter. And no, that's not just the stress of the job, although partly I imagine. But scientists say that long-term exposure to space can actually accelerate aging because radiation levels in space are a lot higher than on Earth. They say that over time, radiation can actually affect your DNA, immune system, and potentially lead to long-term health risks like cancer. You know that one's going to be thrown into almost everything. People also pointed out that her chin looked different, like it got noticeably smaller or less pronounced while she was in space. And I did look, but I couldn't find any, research papers on chins shrinking in space. But, if it does look smaller, I imagine it's got something to do with more of this thing that they call moon face. Because essentially in zero gravity, all of your fluids kind of just float around and move upwards to your head. That makes your face puff up in weird ways, and this is just horrifying that I now know this, but you can even develop flat eyeballs. Flat eyeballs because of this. Apparently, it's a condition that affects about half of the astronauts out on long-term missions because all of that fluid that builds up in your head starts putting pressure against the back of your eyes, and over time, it can flatten the eyeballs and mess with your vision. I'm gonna say it again. Over time, what the It's called SANS, Spaceflight Associated Neuroocular Syndrome. Bang. And it's so crazy that some astronauts come back far-sighted or need new glasses for the ones that they needed when they were up there. Just imagine, you go up, 20/20 vision, all good, come down, and you're looking like freaking Peter Parker. Anyway, sorry, back to the chin. So I imagine based on this, if her face did look bigger, then it would make her chin look relatively smaller. Some other shit that space did with their bodies is you apparently lose about 1 to 2% of bone density per month in space. So that means they potentially could have lost between 9% of bone density and 18%. That is wild. If they don't get overtime, I'm a kick off. They had to work out for 2 hours per day just to maintain their strength. Many long-term astronauts come back with what's known as baby feet because, think about it, you haven't walked in almost a year on those puppies. So you can actually lose all of the calluses on your feet to the point where when you're back on Earth, walking is actually painful. How crazy. And then, of course, probably the most impactful of all of the ones that we've mentioned is the psychological toll, especially since they were planning to be up and back down to Earth in like a week. Doctors say that in all likelihood, there were sleep problems, disorientation, and the occasional identity crisis floating in a metal tube above Earth. I think you get that. In fact, Suni was up there for so long that she broke the record for the most spacewalking of any female astronaut. And then let's talk about it. The crazy, I dare I say the craziest part, because a lot of these health problems are pretty bad. But despite all those health problems, apparently they don't qualify for overtime. Reports say that this is because they are classified as federal employees and are paid under the general schedule, which is around 100 to 150K a year. They do not receive hazard pay or bonuses, and the only extra is a small incidental allowance at roughly $4 per day, totaling, so the whole trip up there for, incidentals, $1,144 for the entire mission. You're telling me I got flat eyeballs for 1,000 pounds? What? A former NASA astronaut, Katie Coleman, confirmed this figure, saying it's treated like an extended business trip. Well, what kind of business trips do you get flat eyeballs on, huh? Now, look, the hope is not lost that they still do get paid for this whole thing, because apparently Trump said, if I have to, quote, I will pay out of my own pocket, I'll take care of that. Please do. And I will be. There's a lot of stories I say that I'll follow up on, and I don't because I forget about them. But this story, keep me accountable in the comments. I will follow up on and make sure I let you know if they get paid or not, because this is an injustice. Flat eyeballs and no overtime is crazy. All right, what's the next story? Actually, sorry, I know I want to move on to the next story, but kind of Boeing's fault for this whole thing, let's be honest. They were the ones that had the technical problems, kept them up there, and they're worth $133 billion. Share. Anyway, moving on. I've got this sugar rush now because my brain was kind of lagging from all of the glucose being used up, like scripting and researching. And then I was like, fuck it. Had a whole chocolate bar, a coffee with 2 sugars, and a marshmallow. And then I was like, that's just, and, whoa! And a freaking capsule of Newtonic, the pills that are supposed to be good for your brain. And I'm not gonna lie, from feeling like shit, this is just for you, Alex, by the way. From feeling like my brain's a little slow to right now, woo, that shit worked. So, moving on to the next story, we gotta ask the question, has there actually been 5 massive hollow structures discovered under the pyramids? Because that is the claim that has been going crazy viral this week with even my boy Joe and Chris Williams chatting about it.
Come out?
Oh, this is insane. So apparently through the use of LiDAR, they have discovered that there are enormous structures underneath the Great Pyramid that go kilometers deep into the earth with coils. They don't understand what it is because they're just looking at LiDAR images, but whatever this is a uniform structure.
Yeah, it's 600 meters descending down those cylinders, and then there's more stuff below it, and then there's additional structures inside of it. Yeah, that was crazy.
So, if you haven't heard, the claim is that scientists have discovered, previously unknown, a 2-kilometer long an underground complex beneath the Giza pyramids. And apparently, according to the scans, it's got these spiral coils or tunnels, we don't know what they are, these geometric chambers, these chambers in the middle of them, and what they describe as massive energy storage cubes. All of that to say that they're essentially suggesting that the pyramids were part of an ancient power plant, or, and this is even really going out there, some sort of weapon system, right? These are the claims. One of the actual authors said, when we magnify these images, we will reveal that beneath it lies what only can be described as a true underground city. There you go. Those are the claims. Moving on. No, I'm kidding. Let's fact check them. Because obviously, these claims are so extraordinary that the evidence must be just as extraordinary, right? Because this would literally reshape our entire view of human civilization, because we were not supposed to be that evolved or sophisticated all the way back then. But I am sad to announce that, at least if right now, the evidence is not extraordinary. In fact, it's kind of very underwhelming. Even to start off with, tracking down the source of this information was incredibly confusing and tricky, which for a claim this big is first red flag. But I do believe that we have, because it seems to all be stemming from something known as the Khafre project. Khafre? How do you think we pronounce that? Khafre? I don't know. It's named Khafre because there is a pyramid in Egypt called Khafre, and that's the one that they did the scans on. So anyway, problem is that all of these claims come from a press release, and they just released the abstract of their findings. So there's no actual paper of all of their research yet. And additionally, this Khafre project doesn't seem to exist beyond like a YouTube channel run by someone that's not even an author, but named Nicole C. Here we go again. C-Lo. I don't know, man. Come on. But it does go deeper, because the people behind this potentially upcoming study have already done a very extremely similar one a couple years ago in 2022. And this is one actually that a lot of people are referencing. It was published in MDPI Journal, which is actually an open access publisher, meaning that authors typically pay to publish their work on there. Now, that doesn't mean that there's no legitimate research, but this journal has been heavily scrutinized and even avoided by some scientists. So not a great start for their previous work. That study has also not been properly and extensively peer-reviewed, which, as we all know, is one of the most important stages for discoveries to have, hold more weight. And while it has gone through a small review, it was a quick process, just a couple of weeks, and it was likely reviewed by radar specialists and not archaeologists or Egypt specialists, I'm pretty sure they're called. And then also the researchers behind that paper and this upcoming one, well, they're not archaeologists or pyramid experts, rather a chemistry professor and an electronic engineer. In fact, one of the authors' previous work is on consciousness studies and alien abduction. So they do go quite far into which is, it's still good. We want to know about all those things, but just to give you context, dedicated fact-checker organizations like Snopes gave it a rating of false. And then lastly, and probably most importantly, the method that they used to make this discovery called, and ready for this one, I'll do it first time, I promise. You see, this is all keep on going, synthetic aperture radar Doppler tomography. Bang! Well, sorry, this is a wild one. Well, it is said to be still very experimental, and then also the results it does produce are hazy and, open to interpretation. And also, these scans were also done by satellite. So, now that is also not to downplay it. It's just kind of very much to say this is all very questionable, right? So, while this is something that we would all love to believe, because who wouldn't want to believe that? It's just currently tough one to get behind, but we'll circle back to it. We'll circle back once they release it, all of that. Let's hope so. Anyway, moving on. Also this week, the World Happiness Report 2025 dropped, and America's positioning, god damn it. That's a wild one. Now, if you didn't know, every year there is this massive report, right? Yes, of course I said massive. And they essentially ask citizens of each country to rate, their lives from 1 to 10. 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. And then kind of like add these up, work out which is the most common, and then make their rankings between happiest countries, saddest countries. And god damn it, Finland. What is up? Man, they have got happiest country in the world, #1 for the 8th year running. I think you're just doing it for the game now. Now, because you knew that you've been one. Everyone clocks it. Yeah, let's all put #1. Or is it #10? Either way. Finland, anyone watching, I know W stub, but may we offer you, have you considered some of our world problems? You don't have any of those? There are, however, other changes, like Costa Rica and Mexico. They entered the top 10 for the first time. Well done. Israel dropped down 3 places to the world's 8th happiest country. And then, of course, we got the familiar faces. We got Denmark, Iceland, Sweden, Netherlands. You get the drill. Both the US and the UK slid down to 23rd and 24th on the list, which, for America, is their lowest and most miserable ranking ever. And then right down all the way to the bottom at the unhappiest countries in the world in 2025, we have Zimbabwe, Malawi, Lebanon, Sierra Leone, and then by a huge margin, actually, the most unhappy country in the world for quite a few years in the running, Afghanistan. There you go. Moving on. Okay, man, the Tesla terrorism has been pretty bad for quite a few weeks, but this week it's getting out of hand. Now, Alex, do not show these videos, but this week I have seen some of the craziest ways that Teslas are getting vandalized. I've seen people throwing up on them. I've seen people reaching in and wiping you-know-what on them. I've seen them kick them. Anything you can imagine, they've done them to a Tesla. So much so that the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi said on Thursday that the 3 defendants accused of vandalism, they potentially are facing up to 20 years in prison. She said the damage to Tesla cars, dealerships, and charging stations were domestic terrorism, which is kind of why that is pumping up right now. But you think that scares them? I don't think so. Because it goes further. Someone this week has created a website called Dogequest, and apparently it's publishing the names, the addresses, and phone numbers of Tesla owners across America. The site claims that it will only remove personal data of these Tesla owners if they have proved to them that they have sold their Tesla. The website reads, if you're on the hunt for a Tesla to unleash your artistic flair with a spray can, just step outside, no map needed. At Dogequest, we believe in empowering creative expressions of protest that you can execute from the comfort of your own home. They say that they neither condone or condemn any actions, but then immediately follow that up by saying, before you embark on any adventure, we highly recommend checking out the No Trace project. I feel like a lot of these have not looked at that because, boy, we got a lot of faces. They don't recognize or they don't know that Teslas all have cameras and they don't cover their faces is crazy. Anyway, the front page of that, No Trace project reads, No Trace, No Case, a collection of tools to help anarchists and other rebels understand the capabilities of their enemies, undermine surveillance efforts, and ultimately act without getting caught. Damn. So, I guess the question back to you guys, do you think that they're doing this for a just cause, or is this going way too far? But let's move on. And the final story before we get into my drama in Heathrow Airport, we got to talk about this tragic story. Because this 6-year-old girl was allegedly sold by her own mother to a Sangoma for her eyes and skin. This is just horrific. But also, while these horrifying claims were made in court this week, one of the defendants accused of orchestrating the girl's kidnapping could be seen laughing. Damn. You see, last year in February, 6-year-old Joshlin Smith from South Africa disappeared, triggering a nationwide search. Initially, her mother, Kelly Smith, claimed that she had left her daughter with the boyfriend. But police quickly became suspicious after discovering that she waited over 6 hours to report Joshlin's disappearance, and also that she hardly showed any signs of distress while they were searching. The mother, along with her boyfriend and another alleged accomplice, were later arrested and accused of selling, delivering, or exchanging Joshlin's and then lying about her disappearance. Now, their criminal trial began 3 weeks ago, and some of the testimonies that we have heard so far are brutal. A local pastor took to the stand and said that all the way back in 2023, the mother spoke to him about needing money and that she would be willing to sell her children for as little as 20,000 rand each. And like Alex put the conversion there because 20,000 rand sounds a lot, but it's nothing. But that also she was willing to go as low as 5,000. That's like $200, $300. The little girl's teacher also testified against the mother, saying that in the days after Joshlin went missing, she said that her daughter was already on a ship inside a container and they were on their way to West Africa. Now, as the trial went on, more and more witnesses took to the stand, including the mother's own freaking sister. And she is a police officer. And all of their accounts were similarly horrifying. But the worst was yet to come, because a pivotal moment in the trial came with the testimony of Loretta Lombard, Kelly's neighbor and friend, who was actually started off by being accused, but then flipped and turned into a state witness. She said that she remembers the mother packing Joshlin's clothes into a bag before meeting a traditional healer, which is in South Africa known as a sangoma, and that this traditional healer drove away with the two of them in a white van. And that was the last time anyone has seen Joshlin Smith. Over 1 year later, we still don't know where she is or if she's even alive. We don't know why this traditional healer wanted her for her fair skin and blue-green eyes, but I do not imagine it is... Oh, man. anything good. Now, this trial is expected to continue until the end of the month, so of course, I'll keep you guys updated. Okay. I feel like we need a vibe shift. Tragedy shall turn into anger because, first of all, 3 sacrificial lambs, get them up there. You know the deal. They are there to remind everyone to subscribe or get thrown into space. Get them on the wall. Today's 3 sacrificial lambs. Let's get to reminding. Subscribe to the channel! Oh, okay. Here we go. I think it's bloody time. Let's talk about it because I shouldn't be here right now. So, for anyone that doesn't know, I live about 3 hours away from the airport to drive. And so, I have a flight to go to Texas, right? And I'll explain why I'm going to Texas later or go on my secret channel. Only you guys should know about it. And so we have to wake up at 3 a.m. to get like a 9:30 a.m. flight. We're driving out there. We're about 20 minutes out. We get an email. It says, bro, if you are coming to Heathrow, turn your ass around. No one should turn up to the airport. Do you know how insane that sounds? That is literally unprecedented for everything to just be shut down. And they said for 24 hours, nothing is taking off and nothing is landing either. Planes were trying to arrive at Europe's busiest airport and one of the busiest in the entire world. They were trying to land. They said, turn your ass around. Some of them were being diverted into Paris. Others were being diverted into freaking Ireland. This is insane. And so the reason for all of this insanity is that there was a fire at one substation that basically cut the whole power to not just the airport, but the whole area. So there was like 30,000, between 16 and 30,000 homes that all lost power. Around 1,300 flights were disrupted. So if you work that out, around 200 people per flight, that's over 200,000 people that were affected by this, including me. You know, and we made the whole trip there. You know, we'd already packed everything, so we're desperately looking at every other flight possible. And literally, as you were looking at flights from other, airports, it was going up by hundreds of pounds every time you refreshed. The closest time that we could get our flight was 3 days away on Monday, which is tomorrow. So we had to turn our asses around, drive all the way back home. And you got to understand, people in the UK, especially the government, were kind of like, damn, this is really not good because the entire airport can be shut down because of a fire at one substation. That's crazy. So it broke down, the fire, and then the backup generators supposed to kick in. They failed as well. So it's a bit like there's investigations being launched into how this is even possible. It doesn't really send a good message to all of the people that actually want to sabotage the UK. You can take the whole thing out with one substation. That's crazy. And it's kind of cooked. Our Airbnb is just sat there already booked. Our rental car, all changed. So yeah, pretty frustrating, but whatever. We live on. And we only live on because now we have the hope and dream of receiving rapid fire rounds. Because also this week, boxing legend George Foreman, who I actually just watched that movie on Netflix about, has tragically passed away at 76 years old. Only person ever to win it at once at 21 years old, and then again after retiring, become a preacher, coming back, and then winning it again at 45 years old. Still to this day, oldest person to have ever won heavyweight championship at that age. Conor McGregor announced that he will be running for president of Ireland this year. In I think it's November elections. Bro, this is getting out of hand. We've got Andrew Tate saying that he's going to run for UK Prime Minister. We've got Donald Trump over in America. Now, Conor McGregor in Ireland. The US Air Force also this week unveiled their 6th generation fighter jet, the F-47. And the contract to build them was awarded to none other than Boeing. $20 billion contract. Each jet will cost around $300 million, and Trump said that the experimental version of the F-47 has been secretly flying around for almost 5 years. Yeah, there's been a lot of shit secretly flying around, let's be honest. The original Family Guy pilot episode, first ever, which was considered, apparently, lost content for 27 years, well, it was rediscovered this week. So any major Family Guy fans, go enjoy that. Update on the whole US selling gold cards for $5 million, because Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said that they have sold 1,000 immigration gold cards in one day this week. That's $5 billion in revenue for 1,000 gold cards. And then lastly, the expensive egg situation, which is so bizarre, that's going on in America right now. Well, the US government is now planning to import eggs from Turkey and South Korea in hopes that it would ease the all-time prices that are in America on eggs. But yeah, that's about it for rapid fire news. We've done so much yapping, we kind of did a short one. Hopefully, by the time you watch this, I will be in the sky, on the plane to Texas, no problems. And if not, if my flight gets delayed, canceled again, okay, here's the deal. If my flight gets canceled again, let me think of the right deal. I want you guys to make my heart feel better by doing this. Alex is gonna come up with something because I'm gonna stand here forever and I can't think of anything and Alex is gonna get pissed off that I get distracted. Anyway, all right. I love you guys and I will see you hopefully next time with a American Texas background and shit being all good in life. So I love you. See you later. Woo! I would bring my whip to Texas, but I think I just don't want the U.S. immigration to get a little sus. I wanna swing from the chandelier, from the chandelier. Oh, should I buy an actual whip in Texas that they use to whip the cows and bring it home? And then I'll have a better one. I'm gonna do that. I have to subscribe. Shit.